Welcome to the Wayne Public Library's virtual author chat. My guest today is Noreen Mughees. Noreen loves hugging trees, people, and cute kittens when she's not daydreaming about happily ever afters for brown people like her. A Desi food addict, she loves cooking and having a mug of garam kai. Oh, you're going to have to pronounce that for me. Chai. Okay. Next to her. When not writing, she can be found traveling to places real and imaginary. Welcome, Noreen. Please tell us a little more about yourself and your new novel, The Misarrangement of Sana Saeed.
Hi, my name is Noreen Mughees, and this is my debut novel, and it is a loose adaptation of Persuasion, um, set within an immigrant Indian family, or Desi family, as we like to say it, in New York. And there's a lot of Bollywood drama. There's some second chance romance, mistaken identity. There's some family dynamics. There's some Bollywood drama, lots of food and cultural references. So if you're a fan of all those things, and Austen, and second chance romance, and a little bit of Romeo and Juliet mixed in, you should pick this up.
Okay. Can you share something about the book that isn't in the blurb?
Yeah, there is a very quirky car named Mirchi that's part of this book that I personally loved writing because I feel like cars don't get enough spotlight sometimes. So yeah, it's not in the blurb, but that, and then there is a ton of food references that you will see through the book. That's not mentioned in the blurb.
Okay. And the premise of the story is your main character, the heroine, she is needs to get married and in her workplace, uh, 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 a former friend or a long ago friend, she's reunited with him, but that's not necessarily who her family wants her to marry. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's kind of Romeo and Juliet mixed in with a little bit of persuasion. So there's these two people that you knew each other and grew up with each other and spent a lot of time together when they were younger, and then the families have a falling out, and then he moves away. And then meanwhile, her family is pressuring her to get married, and she has to get guardianship for her brother, so her mom puts this condition that if you want to be included, then you're going to have to get married. So she agrees to get arranged to this nice guy called Adam. And just when she agrees, lo and behold, the childhood sweetheart comes back in her life and then just complicates things from there.
Okay. So this is definitely a contemporary romance. Is that the genre that you prefer to read and write in?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's like completely CR. It is romance is a big, you know, it is contemporary romance, but there's a little bit of women's fiction. There's more to it. There's more meat to the story than these two people trying to up, go over the hurdles to come together. They have their individual arcs and they have their character arcs, that you see a transformation in each of these characters, aside from the love story. So and that's the kind of books I like to read in general, a little bit more on women's fiction side than pure contemporary romance. Although women's fiction, I don't know, it's such a weird term. They're trying to get rid of that term, but yeah, like something more, a little bit more meat to the story than just two people and their love stories. That's what I like to read and write. I used to read a lot more historical romance, per se, but I think it's just that whatever time I get after I'm done drafting, I like to, read in my genre, and that's why I tend to like read either contemporary romance or some nonfiction too. So
Okay. And for you, what do you think makes a good story?
I truly think that a story like I grew up with a lot of oral storytelling. Like the culture was people would sit and like tell stories to each other, and there always was a lesson to be learned, not just, oh, there's these two people and the king married the queen and the happily ever after. Like there was always a lesson to be learned. There's something to be gained in telling that story. Why is that story important to be told? What's the lesson in that? So I think we tend to gravitate more towards stories that have something we can relate to and something that's a journey for us. So um anything that is a journey where the characters learn a lesson, and whether it's from each other or whether from it's an internal conflict or an external conflict, and there is a transformation in these characters. I feel like that's what makes a good story, because what are you taking us on a journey for if not for these characters and the changes that bring about from the beginning of the story to the end of the story.
And do you, from your the oral tradition, the oral storytelling, do you have any ideas for inspiration for any stories in the future? Or you mentioned persuasion and Romeo and Juliet as the basis for Misarrangement of Sana Saeed, but um, any that you can think of that you might consider to develop into a story.
Yeah, so I've written the second book in the series, which is sort of a loose Emma adaptation. And I've written a third book, which is not in a series, is separate, which is a Great Expectations retelling. So I tend to lean towards the classics. I feel like, and it's sometimes it's intentional, but Great Expectations wasn't. I thought that the class difference is something that I needed to write about, and I thought that was a great story. But yeah, I feel like most of my stories, because I if I don't, because I like don't plot, so I just like start writing. So I think it's good to have some sort of basis for a story for a person like me. Otherwise I tend to lose interest and go here and there, and never the characters don't go anywhere unless it's that. So yeah, I mean sometimes it's intentional, most of the times it's just whatever I want to write about, and those were the stories that were speaking to me. So I kind of picked on those.
Okay, and what are you currently working on?
So, my agent has the proposal for book two. Hopefully, my publisher will get to see it and decide if they want to buy the book two in the series. It's different characters from the book one that we focus on, and these two characters they get married from the first book, so it's part of their marriage ceremony, and these other two characters, how they fall in love and their story. So that's done, and then the third book that I wrote that my agent's currently looking at, that I'm hoping to go in submission next year, is the Great Expectations retelling. Currently I want to draft a YA. I'm working on a proposal for my agent to look at. So I'm trying to delve a little bit on YA, because I think I've written enough adult to go on submission, so I have to try a different genre.
Okay, and with this book, have you heard from your readers, and like what kind of things do they say?
It's been amazing, honestly. I talked to one book club, and it was just so amazing for me to talk to them and connect with the readers. And it's amazing how, like, some of the scenes that I wrote that were really close to me, and they were about grief, and then they caught on to that, and I asked the group, and they said that was their favorite scene, and I was just a little bit taken aback, because I was like, oh, I guess people notice these things, and they like felt what I felt. And then I heard from somebody who said their mom read the book, and they were so like, they laughed, they cried, and the characters made them feel things, and and they were just really happy. So like I think when I hear things like that, because like I am a Muslim writer, and I grew up not having characters like me on book covers. So a big dream of mine was to have people who look like me, and be able to tell their stories, immigrant stories, and stories of happiness and joy, and not just pain and suffering. So when people connect with that, when my readers connect with that, when people say, brown people who look like me say, "Oh, there were so many things in the story that I connected with, and I enjoyed it, and I laughed, and I cried." It truly makes my day. It makes all the hard work that goes into writing a book, revising a book, publishing a book, marketing a book. Nowadays, to market your book like crazy, makes it all worthwhile.
Okay. Well, that's great to hear that everyone is it's so well received by the readers.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as a debut author, you tend to go and on Goodreads and like perseverate on the bad reviews, but they're just part of the process. Not everybody's going to like your book, not everybody's going to be a fan, but overwhelmingly people who have reached out to me have loved the book and appreciated the book and said good things about the book. So, yeah, it's really good to hear.
That's wonderful. Um, so to turn a little bit towards how you got into writing, like what inspired you to start writing? When did you think of writing an entire novel to see if you can have it published?
My journey, I mean, I've always written, even when I was younger. I would like write in my diaries, write little short, like my first book, I think I wrote at the age of 12. It just never went anywhere. But then I gave it up for a while, and then a college friend of mine, she's a writer, she's been writing for a bit, and she and I reconnected after a long time, and she's like, "Oh, what have you been up to?" And I'm like, "I just am busy, and I can never find the time." She's like, "You have to find the time doesn't appear, you just like cut it out of your of cooking and cleaning or whatever, or working full time, just carve out time." So in any case, that conversation led me to think seriously about, maybe I should join a writers group. And I think I started writing after that convo, and then I tried to find writing communities, and it was very hard in the beginning because I was looking for in-person writing groups, and there weren't too many, and they weren't too close to me. Then fortunately, I found one that was right in my township through the library, and then COVID happened. So then I became part of the Twitter community, and they had contests that I became part of that kind of forced me to keep on writing. And I've had my first finished draft in end of 2018-19. So, and then I revised a lot, and then I participated in a lot of contests. As part of one of the Twitter contests, I got assigned to an editor, a developmental editor, who helped me edit my book. And then they had like a showcase where they put your excerpt online, and then agents look through it. So I had a few requests from there. But I didn't seriously start querying it until 2020, after I won the contest, and I revised extensively with my editor. In 20 End of 2020, I had a revision request from a Big Five, which was part of their diversity initiative, and which led me to contact the agents that had my manuscript, and I got 8 offers of rep. And then I chose my agent after a month of talking to different agents and seeing which one would be a good fit for my book, because I had that R&R from the publisher. We revised the book most of 2021. And then end of 2021, we went on submission. and 2022 I sold my book, and it just came out in October. So it's been a long journey. If when I think about it, seems like forever.
That does sound like it's been going on for many years. But you have it now in your hands and it's out in the world, so that's
Yeah.
always a good thing.
And I mean, like obviously I'm not just writing, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, and then I think revisions are a long process for me because I tend to perseverate a lot on revisions. Like I want it to be perfect, and I revise my own revisions, and I like completely start from scratch and like build the story up. And a lot of people don't do that, but I think have a tendency to like really, really revise, so that sometimes takes a while because I'm not happy with sometimes the sentences, and I just like, rewrite every single sentence, you know, that I wrote in the last draft. That's I don't recommend it. Uh, and that's probably why.
Okay. And so for your writing, what would you say is a major influence in it?
I mean, I think obviously Bollywood is a big influence. I mean, I grew up watching a lot of Bollywood movies. To this day, I watch a lot of Bollywood. So I want to say 90s Bollywood is a big inspiration for most of my like stories and the way I tell stories. And I am very visual like learner, and then I'm very visual as a writer too. Like I tend to see the scenes very, like some people see words, some people see visuals, and I think I'm one of the writers that like tends to like see the whole scenes. Um so yeah, so like I think uh that's why my scenes usually begin like in a wide angle and then just kind of zoom in on the character sometimes because that's how I'm visualizing the scenes. Um and I am a pantser. Like I have a loose outline of the story that I want to tell. And so usually, we change as writers, like what I like sometimes I look at the story that I'm doing a proposal for that I wrote in 2020, I believe, is when I started writing it, and I'm like, I'm a different person. So yeah, I mean, I think you change as a writer, you change as a person, and your writing changes too. So yeah, I think a lot of my writing tends to reflect what is going on in my, like, with me as a person and the world around me too. So I try to I try to adapt to that.
Okay. And do you have a writing routine?
Oh gosh, I try to have, like I said, be part of writing groups because I feel like if I didn't have my writing groups, I wouldn't have that routine and that encouragement, because writing is very solitary, right? Because you have to sit down on your own, gather your thoughts and put them down on paper. Um it's not like some of the other arts. So it is very solitary, but you need other people because you need other people to look at your work, critique your work, to encourage you, to keep on telling you this is a story worth telling. Because really the first draft is you getting the story on paper. Like, it's, for me anyway, it is zero draft. You're telling yourself the story, you're trying to understand your characters. I think by the second or the third draft is it's somewhat in a better shape. um so yeah, so like finding the writing groups that keep me motivated, where I'm meeting with them every Mondays or Tuesdays, so I better have some words written to come up with something. And, you know, hopefully the more books I sell, I'll have deadlines to meet. Because, once you sell a book, then you have deadlines that you have to revise by, you have to submit a proposal by, and things like that. And that tends to motivate me to get words on paper.
And do you have, what would you say is like the most difficult part of writing for you?
Um, I think I think revision is hard for me. Like I genuinely love drafting a story, just that like you how you fall in love like with the characters, that whole romance with the characters is amazing, and I'm like you know, I'm very motivated, at least for the first few acts of the book. The middle kind of drags it, but drafting is fun for me. Revising is a pain for me, because the whole act of discovering the characters is just, to me, it's amazing. So yeah, so I'd say that I love the drafting portion of it, of writing, and I write romance, so just when the characters are falling for each other and they realize that they are, I think to me it's just something very special. And I still get goosebumps every time I write those scenes the first time. And even when I revise them, I think I love revising those scenes and making them more come alive. And, those are my favorite scenes to write. And I really truly enjoy like making them perfect, so that you really truly feel, swept away like these characters. So, yeah.
Um, in terms of getting the manuscript published, do you remember the day you got, as they say, the call when you found out that there was a publisher that was interested in publishing you?
Yeah, I remember. Unfortunately, it was right after, like there were some world events going on. I don't remember which one, but like writing is very like, it's hard. Submission is very, very difficult. Mentally it's very taxing. Um and at certain point you're like, I don't think I'll sell this book, but then I did, and I mean, I still remember when I got the email. I had to read it like twice and thrice, and I'm like, I can't believe it. I can't believe I was almost ready to give up on this book. And I think it was June, end of June, like like right in the summertime. So it was wonderful. Like I think I enjoyed my summer so much more because I knew that next year I'm gonna have a book with a cover. And so yeah, I think 2022 summer was a very good summer for me. you know Knowing that I'll have a book out in the world soon. So yeah, I remember reading that email and just being like, wow, this is happening, this is real. I've waited so long for it.
Excellent. And we say when is the most surprising thing that you experienced when about publishing your book?
You know, I think nobody ever prepares you for the amount of marketing you have to do and how much you have to. I mean, I'm generally not a very public person. I'm kind of a private person. But just putting your book out, you have to do a lot of marketing and you have to be accessible to people. It's not just about the book, it's about the writer too. People want to know, well, like who wrote the book, and um, you know, they want to know. So like I think to me it's very it's surprising because you can't just write a book and you know and keep on producing. You actually have to do a lot of work even after your book is out in the world, promoting and having events like this, organizing them and then being part of it and talking about your book constantly. And then, among all the other chaos, keep on writing because you got to write the next thing, you can't just be stuck on this. So, yeah, it took me by a little bit of a surprise on how much actually goes on behind the even after the book is out.
Yes. Yes, I've heard marketing is tends to be the top of most authors' list of not the easiest to have to
Yeah.
constantly.
And it's hard because I'm not a marketing like person by any means. Like I don't have education in marketing. I'm not, I'm a writer barely, you know what I'm saying? And then there's this whole new skill that you have to do based on that.
and fit it into your schedule that is already busy because you've got your life and then you've got writing and then now you've had to add this new dimension to it.
I mean, I kind of knew going in that nowadays writers have to have a platform, but I just didn't know the degree to which like you do. So, yeah.
How helpful were, like, as you mentioned earlier, writers group and critique partners? How helpful are they with all of this new stuff with getting after you get published all the information that you need to get your name out there, the book title out there, and everything that's not necessarily provided by the publisher all the time.
No, and I think a lot of, unfortunately, that's the sad part, that a lot, unless you're like a, top author, all mid-list authors, that's what we're called, because we're not co-hosts, all of us. Most mid-list authors are expected by the publishers to do their publicity. Now, obviously, like, it tends to vary. Some will do a lot, others won't do much. Mine, I had to do a lot of it myself. So like it tends to vary between publishers, but in general, if you're a mid-list author, you're expected to do a lot of the marketing on your own. I think being part of NJRWA, where I met a lot of authors who are published, talking to them about the process, talking to them about the opportunities. I'm also part of their critique group. Um, I have another critique group. I'm like part of two critique groups. One I tend to, and everybody does things differently, but the way I do it, I tend to be part of two. One is they critique your book, but they're your cheerleaders. They kind of like, okay, come on, keep writing. We can't get too hung up on these things. This needs fixing, but you got to keep going, and you're doing a good job. And then you have the critique partners, that are romance readers and writers, and they can pinpoint, oh, this is, you need to develop this part more or that part more. So I think I personally need both, because I tend to get too caught up in the critique sometimes. So having a group that sort of says, forget about this, this is the first draft, keep going, being part of that, and then being part of a critique, that has all helped me, at least, in the process of writing and finishing books. Like, I can't believe sometimes. I mean, it's taken me time, but I did finish writing the third book, whatever, and my agent has it. And a lot of it comes from being part of them and just keeping, they keep you motivated to keep writing.
What advice would you give to a new writer that's just starting out?
Definitely, biggest thing would be to be part of um, groups, whether it's online, in person. Especially if you are on some type of a deadline, even if you're not on a deadline. I mean, people do NaNoWriMo and things like that. I never successfully did Nano. I always fail Nano, but I think things like that tend to get you motivated. I've seen friends who have like finished books, loose drafts of books, during Nano, and get motivated, and then, revise. So I think having a schedule, having being part of communities, and I think people like me who have very busy lives, it's easier to get caught up in things if you're not part of writing groups. So yeah, definitely be part of communities, whether it's online or in person, and be connected to other readers and writers in your genre. Very important to read in your genre, for sure. um, but also like being connected to some sort of groups where you know what readers um, are wanting, because things change and develop. Like, readers from 10 years ago are very different from readers now, so.
Well, I tend to end the interview with a fun question, which I kind of delve into a little bit of your online profile and see what I can pull up of some of your favorite things. And you mentioned recipes in the book, and that I saw online. And, you like to cook. So, do you have a favorite dish that you like to cook?
My favorite, I mean, I love desserts. So I love cooking. I'm not a big baker, but I love cooking desserts. And I love cooking Indian food, obviously. And sometimes I like to cook like American or, Chinese food. Try to cook different types of food, but my favorite thing to cook is desserts. And I tend to do a lot of them during our holiday during Ramadan because we're fasting, so everybody's looking forward to breaking their fast. So I tend to like do all my experimenting during that time, like trying all these different dishes. So yeah, desserts. There's this rice pudding that I love, and it's very simple to make. And that's what I love to cook and eat.
Okay. Um, well, thank you again, Noreen, for joining us this evening, and best of luck with the misarrangement of Sana Saeed and the next two books, which you had mentioned the first one that's out to your editor. No, to your editor, correct?
Agent, agent,
Yes,
my agent. Yep.
your agent. Okay, is tied to this one, so we'll probably know the characters, and the third one that you have out also to be reviewed. So good luck with all of that, and look forward to the next your next release.
Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me, and thank you for all the help.